Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Aquarium of the Pacific's online academy. We're so excited that you're joining us today. My name is Dana. I'm a member of the education department here at the Aquarium, and I'm joined in the studio by two of my friends. I have James and Luke with me. Luke's going to be fielding questions from you all, and James is going to be in the back helping me switch going on what's behind me. So we're all working as a team, and we're ready to explore with you this morning. So if you want to participate in this upcoming program, it's going to be a mackerel dissection. Go ahead and text this phone number right down here. It's 562-286-1838. And like I said, Luke's going to be over there taking those questions. We'd love to have you participate. It's going to be a really hands-on program in the studio, so we'd like to get you involved while you're at home as well. Now, if you are watching this after our live stream, you can still reach out to us at this email address right here. It's going to be live@lbaop.org. That's live@longbeachaquariumofpacific.org. All right. So once again, we'd love to hear you ask questions. We'd love to have you text in some answers if I'm asking anything. This is really all about what you guys are interested in. And again, I said dissection. So what we're going to be doing for the next half hour is we're going to be exploring the external or outside anatomy of a fish, the different parts that make a fish, and then we're going to be exploring the inside. It's a part of a fish that most people don't really get the opportunity to check out. So we're going to look inside, see what we can discover, see if we're able to identify any parts of that animal. And again, I'd love to have you participate and join us. So I'll be over on a side screen doing a dissection right in front of you. If you find that you're not loving what's going on the screen, that's okay. You can always ask questions and maybe not watch, but it's going to be really fun to explore the fish, and we're going to dive in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check what's going on the screen behind me. What do we see there? We see, let's see, I'll step off and see what we've got. I see some rocks. I see some algae or seaweed. Ooh, we got a shark coming in right in the center. Look at that beautiful timing. We've got a lot of fish swimming around as well. Now, while we're making these observations and we're watching the screen, again, this is our blue cavern exhibit. It's the large exhibit that's in our Great Hall, if you've ever visited us here at the aquarium. I want you to think about what these fish have that make them a fish. In the last program, we were talking about all the things on a body that make a fish a fish. So let's see if we can name some of those off. Let's see, that fish has a lot of fins, right? That shark swimming by, there's a lot of fins there. What's covering a fish's body? Let me think. Do they have hair? No, fish don't have hair. Do they have jackets? Are they all wearing jackets? No, that fish doesn't look like it has a jacket on. Let's see. Fish are covered in scales, right? Lots of scales. So we're going to take a closer look at scales here in a little bit. What else do fish have? Well, where is that giant sea bass living? Is it walking around on land? Breathing air through its lungs? Not the last time I checked. Fish are living underwater, meaning instead of lungs, they have gills. So we're going to get to explore gills really up close and personal here in a little bit. But most importantly, my friends, I want you to think about what a fish has that some sea animals don't. Let's compare a fish and an octopus. What do fish have versus an octopus? Well, octopus are really slimy and they're really movable, right? They're very flexible. And that's because octopus don't have bones inside their body. So I want you all to take your hand, reach up behind you, and pat going on. What's this? What is that? What's allowing me to stand up straight, bend one direction or the other? It's a very important part that a fish has, and that's going to be the backbone. And we're going to get to take a look at that as well. So are you ready to dive in? All right, my friends, we're going to go over to our other video and see what we've got going on. Ta-da! What is this? Let's see if I can adjust it a little bit. If I know how to adjust it. Aha, we're going to zoom in a little. We're going to maybe lower the light. Nope, we're going to increase the light. What do you think? There you go. That's a beautiful example of the fish. So this right here is a mackerel, okay? This is a fish that we have along our coastline. Let's make some observations about this animal. What do we see? Well, we mentioned that fish have fins, so let's see if we can find those fins here. Let's see, we've got this fin right here. This is a pectoral fin, that one right over there. I'm going to try to adjust the lighting again a little bit. We're going to zoom out. And there you go. So again, we've got this pectoral fin here. What about these fins on top? Does anybody know what those fins are called? What is that one? Well, just like a shark, that's a dorsal fin. Okay, it's going to be on top there. They have some other little ones back here. What about this one? This one's pretty obvious, right? This is their tail, but we also like to call this the caudal fin of a fish. And this muscle right here, this is kind of the caudal peduncle. It's really strong right through there. What else? Well, we've got some fins down here. This is their anal fin and their pelvic fins. So it sounds like this fish is pretty well equipped with those fins to help them swim, right? As we look at these body parts, we're also going to talk about their functions and how they're helpful for an animal. So again, I mentioned that giant sea bass that we saw on the screen earlier wasn't exactly walking around on land. Instead, it is in fact, ooh, you know what? Maybe if I tip this a little, maybe? No. It has those fins to help it move around in the water. So it's a little bit different than you and I walking around. So let's see what else we've got here. So we've got the fins that are very functional. What about these? We didn't mention this when we were observing those fish before, but this is an eye, right? And a lot of fish, their eyes are designed a little different than you and I. These animals see underwater where we see through air. What else have they got? We mentioned scales. Now this is going to be really hard to see. I'm going to try to get a closer look at these scales here. Ooh, look at those. So they're really, really tiny. All right. Very small scales here. But you can see them. I'm going to use these as a point. Those tiny little scales all along their body. Right? As we zoom out here. What else have they got? Well, what's this line going down their body? We didn't mention that before. This is called a lateral line. Okay, now lateral line is how fish can sense the environment around them. As they move through the water, this lateral line right here actually picks up teeny tiny little vibrations that move around along in the water currents. And as that water pushes along their body, they can actually feel the change in pressure. So take your hands. Actually, Steve, you can switch back to me on the screen here. I want to have you all do an experiment with me. I want you to take your hands and push air. Now, did the person next to you feel that? Or did your pet feel that? Anyone that's with you? Probably not, unless you accidentally hit them, right? But imagine if you were in the pool or in an ocean. And if you were to push water at each other, would you be able to feel that? Yeah, usually there's a lot more of that pressure change with water, right? Now, that's when we're giving a really big push. But I want you to think about being a fish and having that lateral line going down your body. That's going to be a little bit different. They can pick up on teeny tiny movements. And that's actually how fish school. So let's go check out our mackerel again. All right, my friends. Now, what else makes a fish a fish? We mentioned the fins. We mentioned the scales. We mentioned that backbone. That's going to be moving right through the body right here. All right. But really important to be a fish, I want to talk about those gills that we mentioned before. So gills are what allow this animal to breathe underwater. I'm going to pick up this little bony plate right here. This is called an operculum, okay? And that's going to be a gill protective covering. And when you look inside, you can actually see this red kind of feathery stuff in there. Let's take a look. And we're going to check out a really cool image of how these gills work. So we're going to explore that for a moment. So as you can see, if we were to remove that operculum there, the gills, they are the water, those arrows were the water passing through it. And we're going to zoom in here. This part right, oops, wrong way, right here. These are called the gill filaments, and that's where a lot of the gas exchange is happening. It's a very feathery part of that gill, and that is because I want you to picture if they were solid, water's only passing along this outside, but as those gills get feathery, water can touch all of these different parts. It's increasing the surface area of that gill. Now, this part right here, this is called the gill arch, okay? And that's kind of the hard part that's going to give the gill that J-shaped structure that we see in this image here. And then on the gill arch are these gill rakers, all right? And those are going to help keep debris from getting in the gills. And in some fish that are filter feeders, the gill rakers are actually what's used to catch a lot of the food and keep it in that animal's mouth. So now that we've seen how it works, let's go explore what that gill actually looks like on a real fish. Okay, so once again, we're going to take that operculum and we're actually going to pop it up here so that we can get a bit of a better look. Now, how's that lighting? Let's see. Maybe a little brighter, it sounds like. All right, so we can see those gills in there. Now we're going to go ahead and pull one out. Let's see. Just one gill arch. Right there. And right there. This will give you a little bit of a better view of that gill. So we're going to go ahead and set it right there. So just like that drawing that we just saw, we're going to take a closer look at this. And you'll see that it's very similar. All right. It has that gill arch. That's going to be this strong structure that's giving it the support to keep that shape. We've got these gill filaments over here. As I do this, you'll notice that it is, in fact, very, very feathery. Let's check it out. Ready? Like that. You see those feathery filaments there? Again, that's where the gas exchange is actually happening. And then on the inside, you'll see these gill rakers. All right? That's what's going to be catching all the debris or all the food and keeping it in that animal's mouth. So, once again, friends, fish gills, they have a lot more responsibilities than just that breathing that we mentioned earlier. All right, we feeling pretty good about the external anatomy or the outside of this fish? Let's see. Now, once again, if you have any questions that you want to shoot out while we're doing the program, please feel free to text us 562-286-1838. Make sure you have adult permission and do keep in mind that texting rates do apply. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit more about the internal aspect of this fish. Now fish, we had a question earlier about how fish go to the bathroom. And fish are very unique. They have something called a cloaca. It's actually something that you'll see in a handful of marine animals. Birds also have it, reptiles. And it's basically a hole where everything happens. So to cut open this fish, we're actually going to find that cloaca. It's going to be right here. And you want to cut very, very shallow. Why do we want to cut shallow? Why am I not just sticking the scissors in there? Well, we want to look at what's going on inside of this fish, and we don't particularly want to see it all mangled up. So we're going to go ahead and give it a cut right through here, all the way up to the tip. We might go a little bit backwards as well. All right, my friends. So now we're going to open it up. Ooh, what's the first thing we notice? What's happening right now? Right? There's a lot of red stuff coming out. Now, what is that exactly? Well, that's going to be our fish blood, right? So fish blood, we're going to open it up. What do you think it's going to look like? Pause for a second. When I open this animal up, is it going to look just like a textbook drawing of internal organs? I don't know. What do you think? Let's discover. Let's pop it open. Whoa! What am I looking at here? Holy moly. I'm not sure if that's what I expected or not. Well, let's see. Can we identify anything? Why is it more red up here? Why do you think there's a lot of blood up towards the head? What's going on in this area? I don't know. What about all this stuff? Do you think our insides look like this? I thought our insides were nice and pretty. All laid out in a beautiful row, right? Not quite. There's a lot going on in bodies, right? So what do we see here? Well, ooh, interesting. Does anybody notice what's going on over here? Do you see those lines by my thumb? What do you think those might be? Well, if you guessed bones, you are right, my friends. Those are actually fish ribs. What else have we got? Well, got all sorts of stuff going on in here. These are all their internal organs. This is a lot of their digestive tract. Okay. All the way down to the back. Now, one thing that we did mention is that backbone, and we do want to get to that eventually, but first we're going to explore what else is going on. So, something that people tend to forget is the meat of an animal. What makes up the bulk of an animal's body, right? If you look on the side here, if you guys are avid fish food or seafood eaters, what you're eating is the fish fillet. That's going to be on the side here. That's going to be this meaty part that's running along the side of the body. What else have we got here? If you want to text in and let us know what you might be seeing, now's a really great chance to do that. All right, what have we got right here? Does anybody want to take a guess at what this might be? What is that? Let's see, we're going to check out some different organs here. All right. Now, this part right here, oh my gosh, my favorite. If you've been tuning in and checking out my Science of Scuba programs, you might remember me talking about the fish's air bladder. Now, this deals with density, or I'm sorry, buoyancy, right? Where a fish is going to be hanging out in the water column. Are they up on the top or are they down on the bottom of the sea floor? And the way that they're going to regulate that is by filling what's called an air bladder with gas. It's going to be that swim bladder. So let's take a look. That's going to be this part right here. Do you see this kind of silver part right in the middle? I know it's really hard to see with the lighting. I apologize. But this is that swim bladder that I mentioned. Now, if that fish wants to be higher in the water column, they're going to fill that up with gas, and it's going to cause them to be less dense, and it's going to cause the force of buoyancy to push them up. And if they want to go a little bit deeper in the water column, they're actually going to release gas from this air sac, and that's going to allow them to go lower in the water. So let's check it out. Now we're going to put another mackerel up on the screen here for you for a moment while I answer some questions. That way we're not just looking at those fish guts. Let's see here. So how many gills do fish have? That's a really good question. If you saw on the mackerel that I pulled out, I only pulled out one of those gill arches. However, different fish have different amounts of gills. Bony fish, like this one right here, this actually shows 4. But the average number for bony fish is going to be 3 pairs of gill sets, or gill rakers, so on either side. Cartilaginous fish, now those are going to be our sharks and rays. They don't have a bony skeleton like you and I, or like that mackerel over there. Instead, cartilaginous fish have, just like you might have guessed, cartilage in their body, which is a lot more flexible. We have cartilage in our nose and in our ears, and that cartilaginous fish, like our sharks and our rays, there we go, they usually have 5 to 7 pairs. Now, on average, it's 5, but there are some that have 6, and there are some that have 7, and we like to call those 6-gill sharks and 7-gill sharks. As for jawless fish, now this is a group of fish that we don't really spend a whole lot of time talking about here at the aquarium, and yet they're one of my favorites. Now, jawless fish are really, really primitive, meaning they're very, very old, and that can be like lamprey. If you've ever heard of lamprey, they're the ones that like to suck on, and they look kind of like eels. But my other personal favorite for our jawless fish are going to be hagfish. They are also called slime eels, and jawless fish, they're known to have about 7 pairs of gills. Again, that's going to be on either side. So if you've never heard of a hagfish before, I highly encourage you to explore that animal a little bit more. They secrete this slime, and when we harvest them, here we go. Here's some hagfish right here. They're often found in the deep, deep sea, where they're going to be taking advantage of whale falls or other dead and decaying animals that might have dropped to the seafloor. And they like to cover it with slime. And they're also known for going into the cracks and crevices of those animals, but they don't want to get stuck. So what's the best way to slither in and out of holes? Well, be really slimy, right? So again, hagfish, check them out. They're really, really cool. All right, my friends. Another question. Are fish toxic to eat? That's a wonderful question. And the answer can vary depending on the fish you are eating. Now, The animals that we feed or the food that we feed to our animals here at the aquarium are actually restaurant quality, sustainable seafood. And that means a number of different things. So restaurant quality meaning the same stuff that we might order if we go to a restaurant. I personally don't actually like fish, so I've never ordered it, but my mom's a big fish eater, so she likes to order a lot of fish. And again, it's going to be the same quality of fish that our animals here at the aquarium eat. And then the sustainable aspect means that it's harvested in a way that's not affecting the natural habitat. Now, this is important because it's also usually harvested in a way that's going to be safe for the habitat and for us. Now, as far as toxicity goes, this is a subject a little bit outside of my scope of expertise, but some fish do have toxins in them, right? Pufferfish. Pufferfish is a delicacy in some countries, and if it's not prepared just right, there is a chance that there is a toxin within that animal. So you have to be very careful when you're preparing pufferfish. Other animals do have toxins that are brought in from the environment. For example, mercury can be very high in fish and other toxins. So it just depends on the species of fish that you're eating and where they came from, right? So those are really great questions. We're going to hop back over to our mackerel and see what we can do. All right, we're going to put our little buddy back up on the screen here. There we go. Now, what else do we notice? So we mentioned that swim bladder, right? Again, that's going to be this air-filled sac right in here. We've got a lot going on right in here. Now, sometimes people like to say this is the lung because that's where we would imagine our lungs are, right? But wait a second. Do fish have lungs? No, we already talked about the fact that fish do, in fact, have gills like these right here, okay? So let's check out what else we've got. Now, a lot of this is their digestive tract. Now, this part right here kind of looks like a little tube coming to a point. This is their stomach, okay? Now, I've done dissections in the past that can get really interesting because sometimes inside of a fish's stomach, you can find other fish, right? What do fish eat? Well, they like to eat seafood. Let's check it out. Let's see if there's anything inside of this fish's stomach. And now we're going to squeeze it out. The first time I ever did this, I was told to squeeze it out like a tube of toothpaste. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot in here. Not much going on. Now, some other things that I found inside of a fish's stomach. Sometimes you can get like a red coloration and little black dots. And that means they were just feeding on krill. Now, krill is a small plankton like, it looks like a little shrimp. A lot of fish will feed on krill. Like I said, we've also found the skeletons or a full fish in there. What else have we got going on? Now, I mentioned all this blood up top, right? If you notice as you get closer towards the back of the fish, it becomes a lot cleaner. Well, why is there so much blood concentrated up in the front here, do you think? I want you to think about it. What is it next to, right? Look at my pointer fingers. These are the gills. This is where all that blood is. Well, the gills are going to take that oxygen out of the water. They're going to pump it around the fish's body. So a lot of blood is concentrated right there because that is actually where the heart is. Now, what does a heart look like? Is it going to look like that? Is it going to be a perfect little heart drawing? Not quite, right? So let's check out what a fish heart actually looks like. Now, it's going to be a little bit smaller than you might expect. And it's going to be this little triangle right in here. We're going to go plop. There you go, my friends. That little triangle, it's like a little pyramid. That is a fish heart. All right? So again, a little bit smaller than we might expect. See if we can zoom in on that. I know that the light has been a little bit better as we zoom in. There we go. Oh, that's much better. Thank you for the suggestion. All right. There you go. So again, it's shaped like a little pyramid. It's kind of three-sided. Whoops, sorry, I forgot I zoomed in. Let it focus again. There we go. There's that fish heart right there. All right, my friends. Let's zoom back out. It looks like we do have a couple different questions over here. Now, one of the questions from Luke was, have fish been around since the dinosaurs? Yes, there have been fish in the sea for a very, very long time. In fact, do we have an estimate on years for how long fish have been around? 600 million at least, we're going to say. Yeah, so a very, very long time. Fish have, in fact, been around since the dinosaurs. What about this? Do fish have a defense mechanism? Yes, I love this question. Let's go ahead and take a look at that whole mackerel for a moment and see if we can identify any defense mechanisms on here. So check it out. This animal right here, swimming through the ocean, and a predator comes up. What's its first line of defense? What do you think it's going to do? Well, if you guessed swim away, you're right. An animal that has this very forked tail is a really, really fast swimmer. If it had a tail that was kind of more of a broom shape, it would be a lot slower. It can do bursts of speed, but not for very long. What other defense do they have? Well, those scales that I mentioned earlier, those are going to be, check out this one right here. So this is that broom-shaped tail that I was just talking about right over here. Okay, so it's a little bit different than the mackerel that we were looking at. Another line of defense, those scales. Now, it's a descaled fish, but the scales are going to be there to protect their hard body, or their soft body, excuse me. Scales are kind of like plate armor. What other defense mechanisms do they have? Well, a lot of animals bite for defense, right? Let's see what their mouths look like. Is there anything going on? Oh, whoa! Let's do that again. Whoa! Well, their mouth is certainly big enough to do some damage, but I also don't notice a whole lot of teeth, okay? Now, with my finger there, I can kind of feel some tiny teeth, but not enough to really defend themselves. So for the most part, the defense mechanism is going to be that swimming away behavior. Now, I also mentioned the lateral line earlier, okay? That's going to be running down the side of their body. And again, the lateral line is a way that they defend themselves by safety in numbers. Mackerel are schooling fish, so they're going to be swimming together. What is the purpose and use of fish scales? That's another great question. Remember, I was saying that the fish scales are kind of like plate armor. So if you picture like a knight in shining armor, they have that metal covering their body. Well, the scales are going to work in the same way. Fish like our mackerel usually have what's called ctenoid scales, and they're little circular plates that cover their body, and it's kind of a protective layering so nothing can really hurt them. Another question, do sharks have a swim bladder? Oh, that is a wonderful question. Let's go ahead and bring that mackerel swim bladder back up. We're going to take a look right here. So again, that swim bladder is this air sac right in the center there. See if I can get a little bit closer, show you what that looks like. Bump, bump, bump. Might even see if what happens when we pop it. Okay, so did you see that bubble in there kind of pop? So again, that is the swim bladder in a bony fish. Now, the swim bladder allows them to determine where they are in the water column. Again, if you recall the science of scuba, we talked about how we use what's called a BCD or buoyancy compensation device. Now, sharks are a little bit different. They don't have that gas-filled swim bladder. Instead, sharks adjust their buoyancy and control their buoyancy. They have a very fatty liver, and it's very oily, and that's going to make that shark be a little bit less dense and stay in the water column instead of hanging out on the sea floor, like Big Guy, our sand tiger shark right here. What is different about a fish eye compared to humans to allow them to see underwater? That's another really great question, and one that I'm not sure I have the knowledge to answer, but as you look at this fish right here, their eyes are a little bit different than us. Our eyes, the physiology about them allows them to see through air. For example, if you've ever dropped down into the pool or the ocean and opened your eyes, is it very clear? Not usually, right? So usually it's going to be really blurry. And that's because our eyes need air around them to be able to see. Now, fish, they're not like that. They can see through water using these eyes of theirs without having to have that blurry vision. So they see differently. Again, I'm not exactly sure how. I do encourage you to look that up a little bit more. Maybe we can get an answer for us a little bit later on. Let's see. It looks like our questions for now. We're going to jump back and say goodbye to our mackerel fish for a moment. I want to give you one last shot to take a look at the external anatomy here. Again, we'll open that mouth. One last thing. What do you notice about the mouth as we open it? Let's see. Well, it opens, but then it just keeps on going. I want you to think about what this fish might eat. Okay? So that's going to be a little bit of a homework challenge for you. What do mackerel eat? All right, my friends. So we're going to be wrapping up our dissection here, but I want to thank you all for joining me this morning. Okay, we got an answer about those fish eyes. Fish have more rounded lenses, which also allows them to have a little bit more peripheral vision. So right now, if you want to test where your vision field kind of ends, go ahead and take your fingers right here. You're going to move them along the outside. I can still see my fingers. I can still see my fingers. I can still see my fingers. I can still kind of, I lost them, right? Maybe if I look around a little bit, I can see them. But that's kind of where our field of vision ends. It sounds like fish can actually see a lot more that's going on around them. If you look, I'm just going to hold it. Oh, it's still on the screen there. If you look, their fish eyes are also on the side of their body, right? So if it's looking at you straight on, it's on the sides. So again, a different field of vision is one answer for those eyes. So great questions, everyone. Once again, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be back in about half an hour, and we're going to be exploring another subject. We're going to be talking all about invertebrates, all right? And those are going to be those animals without a backbone, unlike our fish that we just got to explore. So once again, thanks for joining us. We'll hope to see you back here soon, and have a wonderful Thursday. Thank you all so much.